Hospitals have a way of shrinking time. Minutes stretch into something sticky and unbearable, while entire years of love replay in your head between the beeping of machines. I sat beside my husband's bed, fingers wrapped tightly around a paper cup of cold coffee, watching the rise and fall of his chest like it was the only thing keeping the world in place. Ethan looked smaller than usual, weaker. The cast on his leg was thick and white, almost too clean for the pain it was meant to hold. The doctor said it was a bad break, slipped near the stairs at work, landed wrong, everything went wrong at once. A freak accident. Life was full of those, I believed. I hate that you're seeing me like this, he said quietly, his voice rough from medication. I leaned forward and brushed his hair back, forcing a smile that felt heavier than it should have. Don't be ridiculous. This is what in sickness looks like. His lips curved slightly. You always stay. That sentence settled in my chest like a promise I'd already paid for. Around us, the hospital hummed, footsteps echoing, monitors chirping, distant voices paging names that didn't matter to me. I hadn't left his side since the ambulance brought him in, not to eat, not to sleep. Love, I thought, was endurance. The door opened softly. A nurse stepped in, young but tired in a way that had nothing to do with long shifts. She checked Ethan's chart, adjusted the Roman 4, her movements careful but distracted. I noticed her hands shaking just a little. Pain level, she asked him. Manageable, Ethan replied, eyes already drifting closed. She nodded, then glanced at me for the first time. Our eyes met, and something flickered there, hesitation, maybe fear or guilt. She stepped closer, pretending to straighten the blanket. Her voice dropped so low I almost missed it. Ma'am, are you his wife? Yes, I said without hesitation. Proud, certain, her jaw tightened. For a second, I thought she might say more, but instead she slipped something into my hand. Paper folded small, intentional, read it alone, she whispered. Before I could react, she was gone. The door clicked shut. My heart began to pound so loudly, I was sure Ethan would hear it. I slowly looked down at my hand. The paper felt heavier than it should have, like it already knew something I didn't. I glanced at my husband. He was asleep, breathing deep and even. His face relaxed in a way that didn't match the story of pain I'd been living in all day. Carefully, quietly, I unfolded the note. 3 words, check the camera, that was it. No name, no explanation. No apology, just a sentence that cracked something open inside me. I read it again and again. My first instinct was denial. Cameras for what? Why? Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe she meant something else. Hospitals had cameras everywhere, hallways, stairwells, entrances. It meant nothing. It had to mean nothing, but my chest felt tight, like air was suddenly optional. I folded the note back up and slipped it into my bag, telling myself I was overreacting. Telling myself I trusted my husband. Telling myself love didn't come with hidden warnings passed in shaking hands. Still, as I sat back down beside Ethan and reached for his fingers, I realized something had changed. I was no longer just waiting for him to heal. I was waiting to find out what had already been broken. The note burned in my bag long after the lights in Ethan's room dimmed. I told myself I would wait until morning, that exhaustion was playing tricks on me, that hospitals were places where fear multiplied without reason. But trust, once nudged, doesn't sit quietly. It claws, it whispers. It refuses to let you rest. When Ethan finally fell into a deeper sleep, his breath slow and drug, heavy, I slipped out of the room. The hallway was nearly empty, washed in pale blue light. My footsteps sounded too loud, like I was already doing something wrong. I followed the signs for security, my palms slick with sweat, my heart racing with a guilt that didn't belong to me. The guard on duty barely looked up when I explained I'd lost my phone earlier and wanted to check the footage near the stairwell where my husband had fallen. My voice surprised me, steady, calm, almost practiced. He pointed me toward a small monitor room and returned to his game. The screen flickered to life. At first there was nothing. People passing, nurses moving with purpose, stretchers rolling by. I fast-forwarded, fingers trembling, my eyes scanning every frame like I was searching for proof that the note was a lie. Then I saw him. Ethan entered the frame, clear as day. He was standing, not leaning, not limping, standing tall, weight balanced easily on both legs. He checked his phone, smiled at something on the screen, then slipped it into his pocket like a man without a single worry in the world. My breath hitched. I leaned closer, heart pounding in my ears. The timestamp blinked in the corner 7 minutes before the accident. No, I whispered. The camera angle shifted as another figure stepped into view. A woman. She wore hospital scrubs, her hair pulled back loosely, a badge swinging at her hip. She laughed when she saw him, reaching for his arm with a familiarity that made my stomach twist. Then she kissed him. Not a quick mistake, not a stolen second, a kiss that lingered, a kiss practiced and unashamed. My vision blurred, but I couldn't look away. His hands slid to her waist like they'd done it 100 times before. He whispered something into her ear, something that made her smile and glance down the hallway as if checking who might be watching. No one was, except me. The footage kept playing, cruel and uninterrupted. I watched them talk, laugh, touch. I watched her step back first, her expression shifting into something rehearsed. I watched Ethan nod. Then on cue, he staggered, not fell, staggered. He grabbed the railing, exaggerated, and went down hard, his leg twisting beneath him. Her scream came instantly, sharp and practiced, echoing through the hall as she rushed to his side. "Help, someone help," she cried. I slammed my hand over my mouth. Nurses poured in. A gurney appeared. Chaos bloomed exactly the way it was supposed to, the perfect performance. I rewound the footage, watched it again. And again. Each time, another detail surfaced: the timing, the eye contact, the way he glanced once toward the camera before falling. Like he knew exactly where the truth was being recorded. My reflection stared back at me from the darkened screen, pale and unrecognizable. I stumbled back from the monitor, my legs weak, my wedding ring suddenly too tight. Every memory of the day replayed in my head: his pain, his apologies, the way he'd squeezed my hand and told me he was grateful I stayed. Grateful, the word tasted bitter. I exited the security room in a daze, the note crumpled in my fist now. Back in Ethan's room, he slept peacefully, his face relaxed, his performance complete. I sat beside him and took his hand. It felt unfamiliar. Something inside me went quiet, not broken, not hysterical, just cold. The woman who believed in accidents was gone. And in her place sat someone who had just seen the truth and would never unsee it again. Grief doesn't always scream. Sometimes it sits very still, watching, learning how to survive in the same room as betrayal. By morning, I had perfected my smile. I brought Ethan his favorite breakfast smoothie. I joked with the doctors. I held his hand when he winced, nodding sympathetically as he described pain I now knew was only half real. Every word he spoke became a test: how easily he lied, how smoothly the story flowed from his mouth. "You should go home and rest," he said softly. "You look exhausted." I kissed his forehead. "I'm not going anywhere." And that was the truth. Just not in the way he thought. I watched everything after that. The nurse from the video didn't come near his room again, but traces of her were everywhere. A name on the medication chart, a handwriting match on a form. It didn't take long before I knew it by heart. I memorized her shifts, her breaks, the way she avoided my eyes in the hallway. At night, when Ethan slept, I investigated. His phone was easier than I expected. He'd always said privacy was a sign of trust. I scrolled through months of messages, my hands steady even as my chest tightened. Inside jokes, late night confessions, plans written in a future that didn't include me. She thinks you're in pain. One message read. She always believes you, another said. I set the phone down carefully, like it might explode. I checked our bank account next. Small transfers at first, carefully spaced, then larger ones, gifts disguised as expenses, hotel charges that aligned perfectly with late meetings and overnight shifts. It was all there. The truth wasn't dramatic anymore, it was methodical, so I became methodical too. I saved screenshots. I photographed statements. I requested copies of hospital footage under the guise of insurance paperwork. I listened when Ethan talked about recovery, about how lucky he was, about how he couldn't wait for life to go back to normal. Normal, I realized, was the lie. The nurse who had slipped me the note watched me one afternoon from the end of the hall. I caught her gaze and held it. She looked terrified, like she expected me to scream or cry or collapse. Instead, I smiled. Later, she found me by the vending machines. I didn't know if I should, she whispered. But it felt wrong. You did the right thing, I said, and I meant it. I won't tell anyone it was you. Her shoulders sagged in relief. He said he loved her, she admitted, but after surgery he kept calling your name. That should have hurt more than it did. Love spoken after betrayal is just another form of theft. When Ethan was discharged, I helped him into the car, adjusted his seat, buckled him in like a careful wife. At home, I rearranged the living room so he could move easily. I managed medications, set alarms, canceled plans. I played my role perfectly, and in the quiet moments when he slept, when the house was still, I planned. Not revenge fueled by rage, something cleaner, something that didn't stain my hands. I would not scream. I would not beg. I would not confront him in a moment of weakness and let him rewrite the story. No, I would let the truth speak for itself. Betrayal had taken my trust, my safety, my illusion, but it had also given me clarity. And clarity, I learned, is far more dangerous than anger. By the time Ethan's cast came off, I was no longer angry. Anger burns fast and loud. What I felt was quieter, sharper, like glass polished until it could cut without effort. Let's celebrate, I suggested one evening, arranging his pills neatly on the table. You've been through so much. He smiled, relief flickering across his face. You're amazing. I don't know what I'd do without you. I almost believed he believed that. I planned everything carefully. A small gathering, nothing suspicious, family members who had prayed for his recovery, a few close friends, and most importantly, hospital staff invited under the excuse of gratitude. Ethan never questioned it. Why would he? I had been obedient, loving, forgiving in all the ways that mattered to him. The living room filled with laughter and familiar voices. Ethan sat at the center, leg free now, leaning into the attention. The nurse from the footage stood near the door, pale, her confidence brittle. When our eyes met, something close to panic flashed across her face. I waited. Timing is everything. When the cake was cut and glasses were raised, I tapped a spoon gently against mine. The sound carried easily. I just want to say thank you. I began, my voice warm. These past weeks have taught me so much about love, honesty, and truth. Ethan squeezed my hand. I squeezed back. I thought it might be nice to share something. I continued, reaching for my phone. A memory from the hospital, since that's where everything really changed. The screen behind me lit up. The video played. Silence spread through the room like a held breath. I watched faces shift, confusion melting into recognition, sympathy into shock. Ethan's grip loosened. His mouth opened, then closed again. Soundless, the kiss, the laughter, the fall. Every lie exposed in high definition. That's not. Ethan started, finally finding his voice. I turned to him calmly. You broke your leg to hide breaking our vows. Gasps rippled through the room. His mother's hand flew to her mouth. Someone whispered my name. I placed a neatly stacked set of papers on the table in front of him. Divorce papers. Bank statements, screenshots. You planned the accident. I said evenly, you paid for silence. You used my love as cover. The nurse tried to slip away. I didn't stop her. She wasn't my ending. Ethan reached for me, panic naked on his face. Please, let me explain. I stepped back. You've explained enough. I turned to the room, lifting my chin. I stayed quiet not because I was weak, but because I wanted the truth to stand where lies once lived. Then I picked up my coat. As I walked toward the door, the nurse who had warned me stood there, eyes shining with unshed tears. She nodded once respect, relief, maybe forgiveness for a world that asks too much of silence. Outside, the night air felt lighter than anything I'd breathed in weeks. I didn't look back. Some revenge destroys, mine healed. Because the sweetest victory isn't watching someone fall, it's standing tall when the truth finally sets you free.